Hey, this is Uthris, and we are back in Men of War Assault Squad 2, continuing work on the Okinawa map here. Giant ravine, of course, and we are building a bunch of rocks. Many hours have pretty much passed, and we've gotten to the stage where we can use copy and paste a lot at this point, and then just make some minor changes to make it look a little bit more manually sculpted and manually placed. So, you know, using that kind of technique and style, you can get away with some things. And really, it's what I encourage you to do. Copying and pasting elements and then changing it slightly. I'm going to be editing the terrain a bit as well. As we're moving away from the areas that I have already built up, I need to establish new pathways to get up and down the landscape. And in doing so, that's going to be, of course, tested with our mighty little tanks here. And just to make sure everything's smooth enough to traverse at a good rate. Here as well, I'm cheating a little bit with those little rocks. I am pretty much going in and spreading them out, as I know, hey, I'm going to put a lot of foliage there that's actually going to be blocking the path. So there's no sense in doubling up the object count in that area, because only parts of it would be seen anyways. We're going to be doing some terrain painting today. We're going to be working up on top of the plateau as well, and getting rid of just the complete flat nature of it. And adding a whole bunch of trees, a whole bunch of foliage. I would say we're about 20% through the map after this episode, which is great. You know, the more landscape we can add, the better, and then sculpt it out and keep testing it as we go with our tank, of course. So the key with me and sculpting the terrain, it's a very additive technique here. And so when I initially did a rough chisel of the shape of the valley, that's using just flat heights, and then to get everything smooth and blended, what I generally do is I set my terrain tool to be relatively quick, and then I just do quick sweeping lines to bring up certain areas. Here we're actually adding some more details, some really higher peaks in the back area here. And that's because I don't really like the way this upper area was just completely flat. And these new mountains are really just for aesthetic. You can't really traverse up them in any way, and they're not meant to be traversed up in any way. And really, there's no point to traverse up them, even if you could. So that's all nice and cool. These are pretty much the main spines of the mountain, and they're going to be sculpted out a little bit. I used a lot of the base height tool, and then got the height, and then I went in with a manual height tool and just added to it to make the spiky peaks areas. And I didn't smooth it as much as everything else because it's a little bit more rough terrain, and so we can leave it like that. Luckily, we're not going to be adding a whole bunch of rocks up there. It's just for looks anyways. Now I'm thinking about adding a river at this point. Maybe at the bottom of the valley. I think that'd be pretty cool. Though there is some pathing challenges with that. But I did want to see how it looked, and so that's what I'm doing here. I'm basically going to be dropping some water in. I didn't really like any of the water textures. The colors were always either too gray in my opinion, or too bright blue like this. This is way too bright to be really useful, but it gives me a nice visual of really what it might look like here. So, and then when I load in the atmosphere to see what it actually looks like in the real engine lighting, you know, I kind of confirm that, and then reload the map and delete what I did. A lot of terrain painting going on. We're going to be establishing kind of the base palette, you could say, about the map. So the hillside itself is going to be rather a brighter green, and then the top and bottom are going to be darker greens, and I think that's going to hopefully provide a good split. We're going to also be painting the upper mountain areas, and this is going to take some time because I'm not 100% sure exactly what I want to do in this case. You know, I know I wanted the sides of them to be exposed, either dirt, rock, or some other texture, and then the rest be grass because it's a little bit more flat and the grass can actually take hold in those areas. So this is just going through a whole bunch of different textures, really looking at it, because a lot of these textures are tile based, as most ground textures are, And certain ones look far more repetitive than others. And so it takes, in my opinion, a lot of testing to find a good combination of the two that looks like they can blend together fairly well. And even at some point, I also tried to see, well, maybe we're high enough at this level to be snow. No, obviously not. So that ends up getting changed, and we're just going to settle with some just green rolling hills and things. Plus, Okinawa is the southern part of Japan. It doesn't get much snow. I'm sure it does maybe in the really high areas, but for most of my pictures that I saw, that there are a lot of just rolling and steep or forested hillsides. But I did establish kind of this palette here with this rock texture actually doesn't look like it repeats too much, so that turned out good. And then we're going to do a little bit of skip. I extended the width of the map because the right side, I felt like there wasn't enough terrain there for me to get people up and down and actually have a decent fight on that side. And so I made it a little bit more wide, and you can do that by just adding polygons out. And then did a little bit more sculpting, trying to flesh out the general shape of things. And now we're actually really going to be focusing in here on this sheer cliff face and getting this all painted and all the kind of plants and trees established. And you know, we're going to be replacing a lot of the ridge lines with that new rock texture there, because I think it matches really well and it brings in a little bit more color that we didn't have otherwise. And you can also see a lot of trees that were added in the skip area up on the flatter sections to make it look a little bit more foresty and a little bit more filled in. It's not plain, and you can get some pretty good details. At the end, I'll end up showing you guys kind of a good look with the atmosphere on, so you guys can see what it's actually going to look like while you're playing the map. And really, in my opinion, it looks really cool. There's some cool shots you can do from like at the bottom when we're looking up, and it looks like the fog is going through the mountains, and it's just so cool. And then next time, after we finish this map, eventually, what I would like to do is maybe make some Star Wars maps for the Star Wars mod, just because I think that'd be a little bit different, and I'm a little tired of placing rocks, and I think this is the only mountain map I'm ever going to make. I mean, there's some people that I'm sure can make, you know, one quicker or something, but I think I pride myself in trying to get a whole bunch of detail in to probably an unneeded level, as this is probably going to kill everyone's PCs when they're actually playing the map itself. But, you know, for me, this is what map making is about. Okay, so we got our extra greeneries going up in the ravines, and that's breaking up the textures rather nicely. A whole bunch of trees going in, just because trees, if you sink them most of the way into the ground, you can use them as new bushes that the game didn't have otherwise, which I think is a cool thing to do because they're very volumetric, the trees are. The shrubbery, not as much, and so you can get some really bulky looking bushes if you sink them into the terrain itself. And really, what I need to do is eventually make a tutorial for you guys, so I can kind of explain in detail some map making techniques on what maybe you guys can try on your own if you guys have the game. Because in terms of making it work multiplayer or like making a defense missions, I'm not so good at. But in my humble, not so humble opinion, I suppose, if I'm talking about it, is I think I'm pretty good at least making terrain. You know, painting terrain, throwing in details, making things at least believable. And, you know, I think that's probably the most important thing, is just believability when you're making items such as this. And, you know, you just have to basically fiddle with things until it looks right. I think that's true with anything that's creative like this. You're just constantly trying something new, something to try and make an effect that you see in your head, and then if it doesn't work, then you delete it and you try again. It's just trial and error over and over and over and over. I really hope to have a good 30% of the map done here soon, and then maybe I might be testing parts of it at least in little mock battles with friends. Anyways, so that's it for the speed build section. We'll be going back to current me here in a moment. Alright, so this is current Uthris, and so we're going to be looking at kind of everything we accomplished this episode. We're looking at the main ridgeline that took up a lot of the time, and everything pretty much turned out really well. I really like, in my opinion, this ridge right here. Just the way everything kind of frames this exposed rock, and it looks it looks so good. And you know, getting your troops up in these areas is just really nice, and it's a good foothold to have. You can see even we have a tank that I was using to test out the pathing just to make sure it was still good. Also, over here, you'll see a lot more trees, a lot more foliage, you know, going in, and just a lot more greenery in general, mixing in with the rocks, trying to break up the surfaces and make everything look really nice and clean. Even added little grass textures everywhere and mixed in some different types, such as like these ferns and some autumn variants as well. You know, basically the main highlight, though, in my opinion, are these little mountains in the background. You know, from the right angle, they just frame the skyline really nicely. And in fact, we're just gonna go ahead and hop into a good kind of in-game atmosphere here. Something bright enough so you guys can see, hopefully. Let's use this one, Bocage. There we go. But you can see the lower we get, just how intimidating this ridgeline is going to be, and how just tense the fighting is going to basically happen over just maintaining control on this area in general. It's going to be pretty impressive. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you all enjoyed the episode, feel free to subscribe to my channel if you're new. Go ahead and hit that like button. Leave a comment down below on what you guys think and what maybe I should add to the map. I'm thinking about maybe in the valley adding some buildings and things like that, but the hills themselves are going to be mainly forest. Go ahead and check out my other videos if you haven't already. I do some other pretty cool creative things, and I'll see you guys next time in some Men of War.